At Maplewood High School, an imposing red brick building situated in the heart of a sleepy suburb, Stephen was a legend. His perpetually tousled hair, mischievous gaze, and infectious laughter made him unmistakable in the hallways. "Stephen, report to the principal's office," exclaimed Mrs. Darville, the discipline supervisor, as Stephen sprinted down the corridors with a sly smile. It wasn't uncommon to see him launching paper airplanes from the second-floor windows or playing harmless pranks on teachers and classmates. Alongside his inseparable friends, Jason and Amber, they formed the infamous trio. In the back of the class, Jason, with his thick-framed glasses and sharp wit, always had a joke or a sarcastic comment ready. "You know, if we got $1 for every time Stephen was sent to the principal's office, we'd be millionaires," he would say, eliciting laughter from Amber, the most sensible of the group with her golden curls and penetrating gaze. However, it wasn't just Stephen's playful nature that drew attention. He had a special, almost magical talent. In his spare time, he crafted handmade bracelets. It started as a hobby using colorful beads and strings, but quickly evolved into intricate and unique designs. Amber once asked Stephen, "How do you create these amazing designs?" "It's like each bracelet tells a story." Stephen just winked and replied, "They do, Amber. Each one is inspired by someone or something from school." It didn't take long for the bracelets to become a coveted item in school. Students of all ages lined up during breaks, hoping Stephen would make a custom bracelet for them. "Hey, Stephen, could you make a bracelet with the football team's colors?" asked Jake, the team captain. Stephen, always with a smile on his face, agreed and meticulously worked on each request, ensuring that every bracelet was perfect. "Here you go, Jake, made especially for you. May it bring you luck in the games," he would say, handing the grateful player the bracelet. Amidst the pranks and mischief, Stephen's talent shone, revealing that beneath the prankster facade was a dedicated artist passionate about his craft. Mrs. Marsha Witman was an unmistakable figure at Maplewood High School. Her upright posture, round-rimmed glasses reflecting the fluorescent ceiling lights, and meticulously tied-up hair in a tight bun contrasted with her fair skin and wrinkles that told stories of decades dedicated to teaching. Upon entering her classroom, a wooden sign on the door displayed Mrs. Marsha Witman, American Literature. Inside, the walls were adorned with literary quotes while a stack of classic books balanced on her desk alongside a mug that read, "I'm the teacher, that's why I'm right." It was a sunny morning as the class prepared for another lesson. But as Stephen and his friends entered the room, the atmosphere shifted. Whispers ceased, and students settled into their seats, fearing the teacher's reprimand. Stephen, attempting to lighten the mood, threw one of his classic jokes. "You know, if Shakespeare were alive today, he'd definitely use emojis in his sonnets," he exclaimed, expecting laughter from the class. Mrs. Marsha, without raising her eyes from her attendance list, responded with sarcasm, "Perhaps, Mr. Stephen. If Shakespeare had you as a student, he would have given up writing and become a comedian instead." The whole room laughed, but it was a tense laughter, as no one wanted to be the next target. Their clashes were almost daily. On a particularly challenging day, Stephen forgot to turn in his assignment on The Great Gatsby. Mrs. Marsha, upon realizing this, asked, "Mr. Stephen, where is your analysis of the American dream?" Stephen, trying to mask his nervousness with humor, replied, "Oh, Mrs. Witman, I'm living the American dream, not analyzing it." She stared at him for a long second, her glasses magnifying her eyes, and said, "Your charm and humor won't get you far here, Stephen. This is a place of learning, not a comedy stage." Mrs. Marshall was respected and feared, but her passion for literature was undeniable. Her strictness was her way of preparing students for the challenges of the world. However, with Stephen, the battle of wills was just beginning. The late afternoon sun cast a golden light through the classroom windows at Maplewood High School, creating a stark contrast with the electric atmosphere pulsing inside. Students were in an uproar thanks to Stephen's latest prank. He had orchestrated a stunt where, by pulling a hidden string, hundreds of colorful flyers fell from the ceiling, each containing a joke. Some kids laughed, while others seemed shocked by the audacity. But all eyes turned to the front of the room where Mrs. Marsha Witman stood like a storm about to break. Her normally pale face was flushed with irritation, and her eyes bore into Stephen with an intense gaze. "Is this what you consider a valuable contribution to your education, Mr. Stephen?" she asked, her voice dripping with disdain. Stephen, always quick with his responses, tried to defend himself with his typical charm. "Well, Mrs. Witman, I thought the class could use a bit of color and humor." A murmur of laughter filled the room, but Mrs. Marsha was not in a joking mood. "Do you find this funny? Do you think you can disrupt my class with your antics and go unpunished?" Stephen hesitated for a moment, a glimpse of insecurity appearing in his eyes. But before he could reply, Mrs. Marsha continued, her voice heavy with frustration and disappointment. "You have talent, Stephen, but you waste it every day with these childish pranks. Tell me, where do you think this will lead you? Do you really believe you'll amount to anything in life acting like this?" The entire room held its breath. Students exchanged uncomfortable glances, knowing that those words had struck a chord with Stephen. Stephen's usual confident demeanor wavered, but instead of appearing defeated, his eyes gained a new determination. "Thank you, Mrs. Witman," he said, his voice calm and controlled. "I'll prove not only to you but to everyone that I can be more than just a class clown." Those words, far from crushing him, became the flame that lit his path. Mrs. Marsha's reprimand, instead of squashing him, gave him something to prove, becoming his greatest driving force. Back at his home, Stephen took charge of a specific room, his garage. It was a small space, but he had turned it into a bustling area filled with creativity. Spools of cord, beads in every color, and sketches of new bracelet designs were scattered all around. Each day, he worked meticulously, shaping, weaving, and crafting unique designs that became the hallmark of his bracelets. Amber, always by his side, suggested one day as they sipped coffee in the small adjoining kitchen, "Have you ever thought about taking your bracelets to a craft fair? I heard there's a big one in Charlotte next month." Stephen, somewhat hesitant, replied, "I don't know, Amber. What if nobody likes my work here? People know me, but in a big city, it's different." She looked at him challengingly and said, "That's exactly why you should go, so that more people can get to know and appreciate your work. And I'll help you." In the weekends that followed, the two of them made several trips to local and regional fairs. With each fair, Stephen realized that his work was not only appreciated but also sought after. People came to him, fascinated by the originality and detail of his bracelets. Some even requested custom designs, expanding their reach even further. Amber introduced Stephen to the digital world. "It's time to go digital," she said excitedly, pulling out her laptop. In just a few days, they set up an elegant website showcasing galleries of his work, videos of Stephen in action, and a space for orders. Social media became the next step. "Instagram will be perfect for you," Amber insisted, creating a profile for Stephen's bracelets. Photos of the bracelets, often taken against the backdrop of sunsets or on the hands of models, began to attract followers from all corners of the United States. Comments like "I need one of these bracelets now" or "Do you ship to Oregon?" became common. Influencers started wearing and tagging Stephen's bracelets in their posts. In a matter of months, what began as a hobby in a high school classroom in a sleepy suburb had transformed into an emerging brand recognized in several American cities. Stephen's determination, coupled with Amber's support and vision, was catapulting him to success. At the height of his early success, Stephen soon realized that the climb to the top was filled with obstacles. While attending a fair in Atlanta, he encountered a vendor who had bracelets nearly identical to his, but of inferior quality and at a lower price. "It's all part of the game, my friend," the vendor said with a cynical smile when Stephen confronted him. Your design is popular, and I'm just riding the wave." Furious and frustrated, Stephen considered giving up several times. It was disheartening to see others profiting from his original ideas. Moreover, as his business grew, he also began to feel financial pressure. Investing in quality material, marketing, and traveling to fairs started to consume a large portion of his profits. On a bleak night, sitting in his garage, Stephen was about to throw in the towel when Jason walked in holding 2 cups of coffee. "I saw this storm brewing, my friend," Jason said, handing a cup to Stephen. "But you're not alone in this." Stephen looked at him, his eyes red and tired. "I just didn't expect it to be this hard, Jason. Everywhere I turn, there's someone trying to bring me down or copy what I do." Jason, always the pragmatist, replied, "It's because you're doing something worthwhile. The imitations are just confirmation of that. But this is where I come in. Let's structure this, create a solid business plan, protect your designs, and expand smartly." With Jason by his side acting as his business manager, they began to overhaul the operation. Licenses were acquired, designs were patented, and new marketing strategies were implemented. Every time Stephen felt like giving up, Mrs. Marsha's words echoed in his mind. "Do you really believe you'll be someone in life by acting this way?" Those words, spoken so sternly at the time they were said, now served as a reminder that he had something to prove. And with Jason and Amber by his side, Stephen's determination never wavered, even in the face of the greatest challenges. The bright lights of the city had never shone so intensely for Stephen. From his humble garage in a quiet suburb, he now found himself in the illuminated studios of New York, getting ready for his first appearance on a national talk show. As a makeup artist gave the finishing touches to his face, he reminisced about the early days selling bracelets to schoolmates and how his life had drastically changed in such a short time. A production assistant approached, handing him a microphone and guiding him on his entrance. The host, David Mathers, was known for his charisma and his ability to draw emotional stories from his guests. As the talk show began, the host said, "And our next guest is a shining example of youth tenacity and entrepreneurship. Hailing from a small suburb, he has turned his passion for making bracelets into a national brand. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Stephen." Entering the stage to warm applause, Stephen greeted David with a firm handshake. They settled into plush armchairs, and the interviewer began, "Stephen, your story is truly inspiring. Tell us, how does it feel to be an example for so many young people?" Taking a deep breath, Stephen replied, "You know, David, I started this because I loved making bracelets and wanted to prove something to myself. I never imagined I would come this far. But if there's one thing I want people to take away from my story, it's that we should never underestimate our potential and passion." In the subsequent weeks, Stephen was invited to various other shows and news features. Newspapers and magazines highlighted his journey, and he became the face of campaigns encouraging youth entrepreneurship. Schools and universities invited him to speak, seeking to inspire their students with his tale of determination. At a particularly memorable event in Chicago, a young person approached him after his speech, tears in their eyes, and said, "You made me believe that I can do something with my passion for drawing. Thank you." Stephen realized the real impact of his journey in these moments. He wasn't just a successful entrepreneur, he had become a beacon of hope for many young people, showing them that with passion and perseverance, dreams can come true. However, life did not smile upon Mrs. Marsha Witman as it did on Stephen. After decades dedicated to education, Mrs. Marsha Witman found herself in a chapter of life for which she was unprepared: retirement. Retirement, which should have been a period of rest and contentment, was marked by adversity. Sitting in her modest living room surrounded by photographs of past classes and teaching awards, she reviewed her accumulated medical bills. On the table, a series of health problems, including a hip surgery and cardiac complications, had consumed a significant portion of her savings. The school's health plan, which she had believed to be sufficient, didn't cover all the necessary procedures and medications. "Mrs. Marsha," her neighbor Eleanor's voice echoed from the doorway, "I brought some soup I made, thought you might like it." "Oh, Eleanor," said Marsha with a tired smile, "you always know when I need a little kindness. Come in, dear." As she savored the hot soup, Eleanor, noticing the documents on the table, tried to broach the subject delicately. "Mara, I know you've been going through tough times. If you need any help or just want to talk, I'm here." Marsha sighed deeply. "I appreciate your kindness, Eleanor. It's just that after all these years of teaching, I never imagined my retirement would be so tumultuous. It feels like problems just keep coming." Eleanor gently squeezed Marsha's hand. "I know you're a strong and resilient woman. You'll get through this." Marsha smiled. "I try, dear, but sometimes I miss the classroom, the students. It's where I found purpose and distraction." It was true. As challenging as students like Stephen could be, her teaching gave her a sense of purpose. The classroom was her sanctuary, a place where she could make a difference. Now facing personal challenges, she felt disconnected from that world and longed for a sense of belonging. However, fate, as always, had its own plans. As Mrs. Marsha navigated this new chapter, an unexpected encounter with Stephen was about to change the course of her story once again. So, destiny had already charted the path for the two of them to have an epic and emotion-filled encounter. On an ordinary day, Stephen was driving through the streets of his childhood city. That day, heavy rain was falling over the small town of Maplewood. Dark clouds filled the sky, giving the scene a gray and melancholic hue. Puddles of water on the streets reflected the intermittent lights of passing cars. Stephen was driving his sleek sports car, a deep blue Jaguar F-Type, through the familiar streets of his childhood. The soft music from the radio contrasted with the constant patter of rain on the car roof. He was lost in thoughts about his old times when something caught his attention. By the roadside, at a bus stop, stood a familiar figure, a woman with a dignified posture, gray hair tied in a bun, round-framed glasses, and a rain-soaked overcoat. It was Mrs. Marsha Witman. For a brief moment, memories of classroom conflicts, reprimands, and those words that had sparked his determination flooded Stephen's mind. Without a second thought, he pulled his car to the side and rolled down the window. "Mrs. Marsha, is that you?" Stephen exclaimed, surprised. The woman turned slightly, taken aback, and her eyes lit up with recognition. "Stephen, my goodness, how you've changed. It's raining heavily. Mrs. Marsha, can I offer you a ride?" "It doesn't seem like the bus will come anytime soon," he said, gesturing towards the empty seat beside him. She hesitated for a moment, looking at the luxurious car and then at Stephen. "Well, if you insist." "Thank you." Stephen quickly got out, opening the passenger door for her. She got in, grateful to escape the rain. The car's interior was warm and cozy, with a gentle leather scent. "They said the bus is delayed due to a fallen tree further down the road," she explained. "Don't worry, Mrs. Marsha. I'll take you home," Stephen replied with a smile. As they drove, an initially awkward silence gave way to lively conversation. They reminisced about old times and shared the twists and turns of life. That unexpected encounter under the curtain of rain would mark the beginning of a new phase in their lives. The gentle roar of the Jaguar's engine contrasted with the melody of raindrops against the window. The atmosphere inside the car was warm and enveloping, with the water droplets sliding down the glass making the outside world seem distant, creating a bubble of intimacy for the two occupants. "You know, Mrs. Marsha," Stephen began, always keeping his eyes on the road, "when I was in school, I often felt like the world was against me. But your criticism, those words, they gave me something to prove." Mrs. Marsha sighed, adjusting her glasses. Stephen, I always knew there was a fire within you. Maybe my words weren't the kindest, but I truly wanted you to channel your energy productively." He chuckled softly. "In a way, you were the spark I needed. Thanks to you, I sought ways to improve and grow. With every bracelet I sold, every deal I closed, I remembered your words. It was as if I was, with every step, trying to prove something." She looked at him, her eyes expressing a mixture of regret and admiration. "I've heard about your success, Stephen. I can't deny that, at first, I felt a pang of guilt for being so tough. But seeing where you've come, I feel immense pride. Even though the circumstances weren't ideal, I'm glad to have been, in some way, a part of your journey." Stephen parked the car in front of Mrs. Marsha's modest house. He turned to face her. "Mrs. Marsha, thank you. Not just for the words, but for the passion and dedication with which you taught all of us. I know we had our moments, but looking back, I realize you only wanted the best for your students." Tears glistened in Mrs. Marsha's eyes. "Life is made up of moments, Stephen. And, believe it or not, you were one of the students who impacted me the most. I see now that we both had our lessons to learn." They shared a warm and meaningful embrace, sealing an unspoken understanding. The rain, which had once seemed like an impediment, now served as the backdrop for a transformative reunion. After the journey that led to a poignant reunion, the Jaguar came to a gentle stop in front of Mrs. Marsha's small house. As the sound of rain created a steady rhythm all around, Stephen felt a tug at his heart. That woman who had once challenged him with her cutting words was now vulnerable before him, and he couldn't simply move on. "Mrs. Marsha," Stephen began, hesitating, "I have a proposal for you." He turned to look at her, his eyes seeking hers. "I know you have an incredible talent for teaching. Have you ever considered giving private lessons?" She seemed surprised, her eyes widening behind her glasses. "Stephen, I appreciate the offer, but I don't have the resources or knowledge to start something like that." Stephen smiled. "What if I could help you with that? Invest in your continued education, assist you in setting up a small business. Not as charity, but as a partnership. A way to thank you for everything you did for me, even if I didn't realize it at the time." A wave of emotion crossed Mrs. Marsha's face. "You would do that for me, Stephen? You gave me a challenge, Mrs. Marsha. Now I want to offer an opportunity." Mrs. Marsha, touched by the wonderful person Stephen had become, accepted his proposal, knowing that she needed a purpose in life, and the universe was providing an irresistible offer. In the months that followed, Stephen kept his promise. He hired tutors to refine Mrs. Marsha's pedagogical skills and helped her set up a suitable space in her home for private lessons. With Amber's assistance, they created a website and social media presence, attracting students from all over the city. The Mrs. Witman Learning Studio quickly became a local sensation. Students struggling with school subjects sought her wisdom and patience, and over time, her services were in such high demand that she had to hire more teachers to meet it. On a sunny afternoon, Stephen visited the studio, watching Mrs. Marsha, who now radiated renewed confidence. It made him feel profound satisfaction. She approached him, her eyes shining. "Stephen, you've shown me that we all have the capacity to change and grow, no matter our age or circumstances." Stephen smiled. "Transformation, Mrs. Marsha, is a two-way street. Just as you helped me find my way, I am honored to do the same for you." They both shared a moment reflecting on life's unexpected turns and the power of a second chance. The days passed, and their relationship grew stronger, their friendship deepening and mutual respect abounding. On an ordinary day, the sun was setting, casting long shadows from the buildings in the city of Maplewood, creating patterns on the ground. Stephen and Mrs. Marsha were sitting on a park bench in front of a serene lake, reflecting on the tumultuous past and prosperous present they shared. Who would have thought, Mrs. Marsha, Stephen began with a nostalgic smile that the mischievous boy and the stern teacher from Maplewood High School would become symbols of resilience for the whole town. Mrs. Marsha chuckled softly. Never underestimate the power of words, Stephen, even those spoken in moments of frustration. They have the power to change destinies for better or worse. Stephen agreed. Your words hurt me that day, but they also propelled me. They gave me direction, a purpose. I wanted to prove you wrong about me, but in the process, I ended up proving to myself what I was truly capable of. Mrs. Marsha looked at him, her eyes moist. And you, Stephen, with your generosity, showed me that there is always a chance for redemption, for change. You gave me a new lease on life when I thought my story was written. Both lost in thought, contemplating how intricately their lives were intertwined and the impact they had on each other. And in that town where it all began, who would have thought that two words would be what propelled someone? And in that little place, a reunion loaded with the end of an old resentment and the beginning of a friendship filled with admiration happened. Until one day, in the city center, a crowd had gathered. The mayor of Maplewood was about to unveil something that had been worked on in secret for the past few months, a statue honoring the resilience and determination of Stephen and Mrs. Marsha. The bronze captured a touching scene, a teacher pointing to a student who, with a bracelet in one hand and a book in the other, gazed at the horizon. The mayor began, "This statue is not just a tribute to two individuals, but symbolizes the strength of our community. It shows that with support, understanding, and a second chance, anyone can rewrite their story." The crowd applauded, many with tears in their eyes, recognizing in themselves the feelings of overcoming and redemption. Stephen and Mrs. Marsha, holding hands, looked at the statue, a lasting testament to the power of words and the transformation that perseverance and mutual support can bring. Thank you for joining us today on Deep Stories. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video.